and going well for time. I wanted to flag that the strategic priority of improved waterways, I don't believe it's reflected well enough in the infrastructure strategy, particularly around stormwater and wastewater. So I know that Evan Smith from the Aotearoa Network has talked quite at length around underfunding, or that the proposed investment options for both stormwater and wastewater are the medium investment options, whereas I would support the high investment option for both wastewater and stormwater to meet that strategic priority of improved waterways. I don't think it's acceptable for wastewater overflows to be predicted to be increasing in the future in our rivers. I think we should be aiming to at least maintain or reduce wastewater overflows. And I do understand that with climate change and with earthquake recovery, our infrastructure is struggling, and I understand that, but I think that we shouldn't. We should value the investment that we're putting in now for the future, and possibly postpone investments such as a large covered stadium. I did suggest as well, as a future idea, for future LTPs, a climate impact statement to accompany the LTP. I don't know if that's something that's been raised by others before. So that would be a statement that would look at accounting around the different key options in the LTP, so that both people who are providing submissions and councillors can make informed decisions around the climate impacts. So alongside the financial numbers, you'd have information about what would this mean for both mitigation of climate change and adaptation. And this could come in as part of the Zero Carbon Act, I don't know, but it's something that could be a commonplace occurrence. So now to a submission point about the Aotearoa River Corridor. I believe that the LTP should contain funding from next year for the regeneration Christchurch planning process. So I think a few others might have submitted on this point that obviously the Regenerate Christchurch plan will be finalised in the next few months, and I don't believe there's anything tagged specifically in the LTP for that master planning to be implemented by the City Council. I mean, I know that it will be jointly implemented. City Council and many other parties will be putting in, contributing towards initiatives within the red zone. But there should be, I see the City Council could play a strong role in seed funding of initiatives that in the future will both reduce the cost to the council for that red zone area, but also lead to a lot of economic development. And I have put in a nominal figure of 20 million for a contestable fund for the red zone for long-term uses, and 250,000 per year for the next few years for transitional uses, for those that are less than 5 years. So I'm a local resident of the Shirley-Richmond area, and I've put in a submission point around the Shirley Community Centre, which is, I know, also been discussed by quite a few people in submissions already. I support a local resident who has come up with a proposal to move the current Shirley Library facilities to the Shirley Community Centre site. And the reason for that, or at least to scope the feasibility of that. The reason being that I do see the current Shirley Library as quite restricted, and I know that the Palms are looking at expanding their current footprint, and they're really keen to acquire that library site. So I could imagine that the Shirley Library could be moved to the Shirley Community Centre site with developed facilities, extended facilities, and have a win-win for both the Palms and for the community. Yeah, so I would support at least some feasibility funding around that, or for staff to spend time to continue to investigate these options. I understand that there are a lot of community facilities in this area, and it is complex. And finally, my last point is around roading in northwest Richmond, which is the Dudley Creek Works area. So after living in this area, I have seen that we expected the roads to be replaced. And I think this current year or next year in the previous LTP, it was budgeted to be road renewals for Warden Street, which I live on, or Stapleton's Road, Nichols Street. And I believe the only reason these roads are identified as being very rough and needing replacement, but the only reason that they haven't been replaced was because of the Dudley Creek Works and the uncertainty about which area these were going to take, which route these were going to take. And so under skirt they weren't able to be repaired. And now they've been delayed because of the Dudley Creek Works, which are for people further upstream, Flockton Basin, and now we've heard that they're going to be further delayed. So just putting in a plea to please respect. I think if you look at a Christchurch map of road condition, our area is looking very shabby. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's hugely
questions
challenging.
around my personal submission?
Yeah. Has anyone got any questions? Vicky?
Just one. Sophie, I don't know if you've read the latest Productivity Commission report. It suggests actually that all businesses will have to do carbon impact accounting.
That'd be great. And I think they put a very high price on, proposing a very high price on carbon as well. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, ooh.
Phil and Yanni.
Sophie, can I just ask you about your suggestion about the climate change impact statement, that could be part of our plan? See, I guess part of the reason we haven't gone so strong on that is because we would also like central government advice around potential climate change. So does that, I'm just wondering, were you still wanting us, though, and think it would be useful to have actually had a statement from with the information we have? Is that what you had in mind?
Yes, I understand it wouldn't be for many. There's so much detail on the plan. It would only be for a few key options that have been identified as playing quite a large role in what our emissions either would be or adaptation for the city. Okay. And I've forgotten my point. It's just
how much I guess we can include, because we haven't got all the information yet, especially from central government. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I haven't looked into what that statement might look like, and yeah, hopefully the Zero Carbon Act will provide guidance on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yanni?
Just two quick questions. One is in another part of the city, we've got the library in the mall, and what we've found is that's really led to a huge increase in usage. Is that something? I mean, you've talked about us selling off the land to the mall so they can expand. But have you considered the idea that we would, actually just incorporate it into the mall redevelopment?
Well, at the moment I do feel it is part of the mall. It is just right alongside it. I think it wouldn't be very far away, just down the road. It wouldn't stop people from... both sites are very close together.
Right.
Yeah.
And the second question is, you haven't mentioned anything about funding for the Heathcote River, so you've talked about the Avon Otakaro River. Have you got any thoughts about whether we should look at putting some funding towards environmental enhancement of the Heathcote Otaaro River?
Yes. I think there is a stormwater management plan for the Heathcote Oahu planned as well as the Avon. The reason I submit on the Avon is because I am more aware of what's happening through my role. I'm a volunteer with the Avon Otakaro Network on the Strategic Steering Group.
Yeah, thanks.
Glenn?
Oh, thank you. So many things I'd like to ask, but just one. Just over planting trees in much of that residential red zone area, would you have a particular view on, collaboration over this, or how it might be undertaken, or, in terms of it as a carbon sink?
Yeah, so don't underestimate how much work it takes to replant.
Right.
And Working Waters Trust has done, in my previous work experience, I have worked on urban stream restoration projects. It is very easy to get people to plant. It's very hard to get people to do the maintenance afterwards, and I think that needs to be thought through carefully. I'm advocating for a multi-use park, not just so the green spine obviously will have a lot of regeneration, but there could be a lot of wet, watery wetland infrastructure. That might actually be easier. What you can do in the Bexley area, for example, is if you do move the stock banks, is that you'll get natural salt marsh regeneration without having to plant. I'm pretty sure, well, that's my opinion. So thinking smart about, if the salt marsh habitat is already there and you can just expand it and have that natural seed source, that will be a lot less work. Then, and it will always be infestations of weeds. Yeah. But it's still worthwhile doing. Yeah. Just clarifying. Yeah.
That's lovely. Look, thank you very much, and much appreciate your time and making all of those submissions on behalf of the different groups. And you were right to separate them. I think we got more value out of it that way. So,
well, also the reviews of each organisation. They don't support each point. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
they
were mutually reinforcing.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks very much. All right, well, I'm going to adjourn this meeting now until Saturday, the 12th of May at 10 a.m. See you all on Saturday.